what sort of things would an artist need an attorney like you for?
I help artists start their own businesses.
Okay.
They come to me, they need a place to hold all the revenue for their music earnings or their merch earnings, and so I set up an LLC for them, or I make agreements such as band agreements or copyright registrations, trademark registrations.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. Super excited to have Julia Holt on the podcast today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
So, as I always do, I like pre-start because I don't know how to do all this stuff. So I just start talking. But you were about to tell me, so why don't you tell me about your business?
Sure.
And then I'll just like pepper you with questions about how you got there.
Okay. So I currently run an entertainment law practice. I practice IP law and business law as well. So I work with performers and small businesses primarily.
Okay, so that's super niche, right? Mm-hmm. Niche, right? People used to say niche. Now it's like, I don't know. Now it's niche. But how did you always know like you wanted to do IP, or is it did you fall into it?
I felt like I fell into law in general.
Sure, most of us do,
yeah.
Right? Like you have the poli-sci nerds, right? That like want to talk about the Constitution, and like they know they're going to law school and they're insufferable.
Yeah.
And then you have like the rest of us who were just like, I don't know. I woke up one day and like looked around and was like, shit, I'm in law school? I thought, I thought I was med school. So you're on the other, you're with me. You're on like the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a musician and an actress
Okay.
before going into law school. I was working at a recording studio. I was booking bands and managing them. And then I decided, how about go to grad school and also go to law school at the same time?
I'd explore the business of entertainment, which
I've
then is a slippery slope into law, right? Because it's really, when we're talking about the business side of entertainment, I always think the law is probably heavy-handed on that.
It is. I mean, I had a degree in music industry studies from Loyola, so
Okay.
I was exposed to music law and business law, and a lot of these agreements I'm, confronted with very early on, and it was just kind of like an easy transition for me because, I was just exposed to it working in the business for a while.
So what kind of musician? What do you...
I play piano and I sing. I studied jazz for a while, but I'm more of like a R&B, neo-soul kind of artist.
Okay. And in acting, what kind of acting do you do? Or you were formerly known as?
I'm not currently acting, but I liked more like dramatic and comedic roles.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I feel like I'm always acting. I feel like my whole day is like one act, and then I just go home. And then...
You have the costume with the suit.
Right. That's it. That's why I'm wearing the suit.
Yeah.
I'm like going to court today. Get real. I'm just wearing it for you. Today the part of the lawyer will be played by, Justin Chopin. You need to get like an understudy. All right, well, cool. So what are some of the things you're seeing the most in your practice, which is Holt Law, right?
Julia Holt.
Julia Holt Law. Okay. Mm-hmm. I know, someone asked me, they're like, do you have to have the in the law firm? And I was like, well, I don't know. I've always just said the Chopin Law Firm. They're like, well, could it just be Chopin Law Firm? I was like, could. I mean, that is also a name that we could use. Yeah. They're like, well, why is there the? And I was like, I don't know, because one day I had to come up with the name of a law firm.
Right.
And for some reason, I put the article, is it in your, this is an actual conversation with like a marketer. Because
it's
they're
just
like,
ingrained.
Well, I was like, I can't change the way I say it now, right? I heard you say Chopin Law earlier, and I was like, well, that's not it, It's the, first of all. And they were like, well, is the on the incorporation work? And I was like, I don't know. I don't even know because that was a long time ago. It was like 10 years ago. I'd have to go back and look. I don't know if it is or not. And even still, if it is if the is there, like does that even matter? But so all right, Julia Holt Law, but you said law firm. My one sheet says Julia Holt Law.
It's the same.
It's not. It's totally different. It's totally different.
Officially on articles of incorporation is law firm.
Okay.
But on social media.
Yeah, okay, on social media. Yeah, so that's, look, we're late to the social media game. And so a lot of these things, like our URL was always like ChopinLawFirm.com. And I got so annoyed with having to like use the emphasis on law firm, right? So if someone wants to email you, you can't just be like, oh, just email me. You're to be like ChopinLawFirm.com. Sometimes you even find yourself like FIRM. And so I decided we cornered the market on Chopin.
Good.
And so now it's just Chopin.com. I had to do some things I'm really not proud of to get that URL.
Had to
I did
track down some domain trolls.
No, I knew the owner of it. I had to do some things, but it's better now. So I can just say, email me. It's my first name and my last name.
Yeah.
And even still, people get confused. But so what are some of the things that you see in your practice? Because our practices are entirely different. So what kind of musicians would you be representing?
I represent jazz artists. I represent funk artists, hip hop. I just a wide range.
Okay.
A lot.
And is that local here to New Orleans?
Mostly New Orleans, or they have a relationship with New Orleans, like they lived in New Orleans at one point in time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what sort of things would an artist need an attorney like you for? Like what are some of the things that you're seeing?
I help artists start their own businesses.
Okay.
They come to me, they need a place to hold all the revenue for their music earnings or their merch earnings, and so I set up an LLC for them, or I make agreements such as band agreements or copyright registrations, trademark registrations.
I always think it's interesting when you look at like really famous bands because you think of them as like they're just all buds, right? Like Ringo and John, like they're just all friends, but they're not, right? This is absolutely a business relationship. And when you look at when bands break up and then you start seeing, then you really see the business side of all of it, and how revenue flows, right? Like does Ringo get paid the same as Lennon? And no, he didn't, right? Or Queen had another, you can look at the business behind all that. I think that's fascinating and how that works. So your average band, like what do their contractual relationships look like?
A lot of people want to do like a equal percentage. Some want a little bit more, but
so that's like we call that the friends
agreement.
The friends agreement, like Friends is in the show. Right?
But
are you part of the Friends generation? Or
I've watched a few.
Do you know what I mean when I say
episodes,
the Friends agreement?
Like buddy.
No. So in the 90s, like Friends has their first season, and it's huge, right?
Yeah.
And before then, it would have been common there for their key players in the sitcom to maybe make more than the others.
Yeah.
And what the actors in Friends did that was ingenious is they came together, sort of like this sort of collective bargaining agreement, and they were like, no, we're all going to make the same. And then they really held all the power.
Yeah.
Other shows have done it since, but they were the ones that really like came together, and I think to their benefit, right? They were like $1 million an episode per person, and they wouldn't in $1995, right? So
I remember hearing about how much they were earning, but I didn't remember that they all made the same.
That was their deal. Like they were not one. And actually, I think that when you look back on that show, or maybe that band, in a certain extent, like that show, each one of them was integral to the success of the show. And had you tried to replace any one of them, it would have fell flat.
I agree.
Right. And I guess bands maybe
they'll have
similar.
Key man provisions in some of them, but I haven't had any band come to me yet with saying if this person is not a part of the band, then they cannot continue. I mean, under state law, it's assumed that everybody gets an equal percentage.
Oh, okay.
In Louisiana, so
that's provided. There's like a statute that provides for that.
Yeah, like
if
there's like a partnership law.
Okay. So you would just use your standard.
They're assumed to be partners. So if there's four people in the band, then it's everybody gets 25%.
Got it. And are you typically are they structured more like LLCs, or are they doing it more like in a partnership, like an LLP?
Well, they're doing it more as an LLC.
Okay.
Yeah.
But but as a partnership.
I think most people are not incorporating their bands like they should be, but
right. Okay. Hey, so if you're out there and
I'm here.
You're the next big band. This is pay attention here. This is what you need to know. I don't know this stuff. I do not play any instruments. I certainly know corporate law in an old life. Before this life, I was a commercial lawyer, and so I did most of these sorts of things, but never in this space, right? So, so that's more on the business side of it. So that's interesting. And then on the intellectual property side, how does that work? So, what are some of the things that you would need to? How are you protecting musicians there?
Cease and desist orders, confidentiality agreements, NDAs, name, image, and likeness, life rights agreements. Trademarks, copyrights.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should get some of that now that I'm famous with this podcast, with our thousands, millions of viewers. Okay, well, cool. Well, that's all very interesting stuff. I like that. I've been on Facebook since it was the Facebook.
Okay.
Right, much like my law firm, right? It was the Facebook. And then I only got on Instagram like a year or two ago. No, I guess it was longer than that, but a few years ago. And the only reason I got on Instagram is I was reading a news article about somebody who was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. And I'm a big hiker, and I'm like, neat. And they're like, you can follow me on Instagram. I was like, I can? I didn't know that is what Instagram was for. I thought Instagram was just the Facebook, just like the same, but on a different app. And so I was like, okay, well, I would like to follow this person. Hike the Appalachian Trail. And so I downloaded Instagram, and and now like that's all I do, right? I just check Instagram all day. So it's the social media permeating every element of our lives. Like people are always telling me I should do it too. Like even the production crew here, like, right? I mean, Armando's always like, just go ahead and film it like while you're walking in the airport. Right. I was like, what? I'm not doing that. That's weird. I'm not doing that. So somebody wanted my opinion on something, and I was in the airport. They're like, even better. I was like, no. But then TikTok came, and I thought TikTok was for kids. So I was like, well, I'm not going to mess around on TikTok until I did, right? And then, I got, I guess, one of our first videos here. And then I was like, well, I suppose if we're going to have an Instagram account, like there are people on TikTok, like we should just have a TikTok account. So I opened a TikTok account, and I didn't really get it. I was like scrolling, and I was like, so this is just Instagram, but without the text, right? So it's really all the same thing. And so my Gen X-ness still really gravitates to the Facebook. But so we boosted something on TikTok, and we saw it, and it was kind of interesting. But I can imagine, so I mean that's how we found ourselves here. I was just messing around. Yeah. So how does social media affect your clients? Because I can imagine with so much. So my videos, I know, like when I post them, they're like, would you like other people to be able to repost them? I'm like, absolutely, but they don't. Like nobody reposts our stuff. Sorry, I was very disappointed to find out they were just being nice when they asked me that. But maybe for your artist, like that's a bigger deal. How does that work?
Well, there's some people who will use their art without permission, so we'll have to go and do like DMCA takedown notices because they use their music or they claim it's theirs, or they have photos that the artist made and they're sharing it when they're not supposed to. Also, just making sure they're getting paid for their music on social media too.
Yeah, I think we had that too. So we had like some video we put out with like very ubiquitous house music. Yeah. And Facebook was like, man, you can't post that. That's copyright infringement. I was like, what? That's insane. I had no idea what I didn't create it. It was like some editor did it.
Yeah.
And there was like a whole hullabaloo about, I was like, well, just change the house music. I don't know, put it on some other house music.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me is that anybody was able to figure that out because it was like a very ubiquitous beat in the background. It's, whatever, like you would even be able to hear it. How are artists having to police this? Are they just having to like troll the socials media to just see if any of their content's out there, or they stumble on it?
They stumble on it a lot of the time. Some larger IP firms might have people that are just like patrolling the content, like get little pings for how it's used.
How far are we from AI doing this for you? And trolling for
I'm sure there's software already out there that can do it. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that would be like the next step, right?
Yeah.
So you can run a search, have AI, find likeness in sound.
Yeah.
I always think that's interesting. What's the old? It was a David Bowie song, and it was Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
And whether Vanilla Ice was using, I don't remember what the outcome of that was. Was Vanilla Ice using David Bowie's? Do you know what I'm talking about? Dun 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 dun.
Queen?
Right, Under Pressure, and then it was like, and they're like, no, it's totally different because it's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah, Vanilla
Like,
Ice
wait,
had
what?
to pay Queen.
Is that what he had to pay David Bowie?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, I always think that's kind of fun. So, so you're helping them put together the business side of it.
Right.
So what recourse do they have then if they're like, okay, will you send a cease and desist to, you just DM the contact on TikTok?
I can DM them. If they're a business, I can look up their information online and or the Secretary of State, wherever they're registered, reach out to them with a formal letter officially.
And so let's say it's an individual. And right, I mean, you can set up dummy accounts like all day long, right? So if you DM them, I would imagine 9 times out of 10 they just kind of blow you off.
I mean, you can give them a warning.
And then what? And then what do you like? Can you report it
You
to
can
TikTok?
report it through you go through the community guidelines and figure out how to report it and take it down.
So when your clients are posting on social media, would they then need to like select the option that like you're not allowed to capture this content and reshare it?
I don't advise them to do that. They can.
Right, because it's kind of like it's a catch-22.
Yeah. You want people to reshare your art.
Right, you want them to reshare. You want to be viral, right?
Yeah.
You want to, but I suppose you're going to want to be compensated for it at the same time.
Yeah.
Maybe what's the distinguishing line there, like to balance those two? How do you best advise someone? You want to go viral, but
I guess it's like depending on the use of the art. They're taking it, they're saying that it's theirs, or they're just kind of like making a catfishing account or something. I would say that would be a good time to patrol it.
Gotcha. I always think for jazz and blues, it's interesting because they're like these songs, these blues songs that every artist for 80 years has sang the same song.
Yeah,
right?
standards.
Right. They're just like these. There's even debate, I guess, as to who wrote. Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. Right. Like every blues artist ever has sang it. I could not tell you who the original one is.
Yeah.
I like the Bobby Bland version. Right, but everyone's like, no, that's not the right version. The right version is, and it's like somebody I don't even know, or even like powerhouses like Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker. Like these guys are just recycling the same sounds and tunes over and over and over again. Love it, but it is amusing, right? I mean, you can imagine that in a pop sense, right?
Right.
Like, can you imagine
the 1-4-5 combinations?
Right, just. What's today's example? Sabrina Carpenter is just going to sing all of T Swift's stuff, but these guys like Muddy Waters isn't suing Bobby Bland, right? No. I mean, those guys are just like, nah, that's cool. Like we're good.
Yeah.
I think that's like kind of an interesting. Do you think that is because it's part of a culturally significant music versus, you know, more on the business side of music?
It's the business side. You know, people going and getting the right clearances, the right licensing, or giving mechanical rights to the original songwriters. So it's just giving credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
And knowing who might have done it originally and the due diligence to go back and find out.
We always used to laugh. My cousin was in I don't know what you would call it, a death metal band. Could be. I don't know if it's death. Could be. But like the kind of music, like where you scream, like it's like, you know, there's more screaming than singing. You know, that's he was a drummer, and that's what he loved. I think he liked the energy of it, I suppose. Yeah. And so it's not fair to say it was like a garage band. They would play gigs, but you know, for all intents and purposes, like we would call this a garage band. And I don't even remember what the name of the band was. It's like Room 234, something along those lines. And then they get a cease and desist from like another garage band based out of the Pacific Northwest. It's like, hey, you can't call yourself that. Mm-hmm. We're that. And everyone's laughing because it was like, well, not one of these bands has any commercial success whatsoever. Yeah. I really thought you guys were just in it for fun, you know, and you go to the gigs and there's like the family of the band. Yeah. And like one person showed up and was like, fuck, I thought this was like bowling night. Like they're totally confused. Like, why is this guy yelling death metal at me? You know, and then even the people that were there, they're actually wearing earplugs, which I thought was like, why is everyone wearing earplugs? They're like, it's much too loud. Here, take a set. I was like, but I think you're here for the music. They're like, no, we're here for emotional
stand
support.
Outside and hear it.
Right, exactly. You know, that's what there used to be this bar on Chapatulas. I don't even know the name of it. We would just call it. It was called the Bar Behind the Eight Ball, and it was called the Bar Behind the Eight Ball because someone had painted an 8 ball on like the flood wall, you know, on the river. I'm confident this place had its own name. You know, it's just, you know, but yeah. So even then, you know, there, and I would never change my name. Like that's ridiculous. We were here first. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna come down here and like sue me for my garage band name? Because I don't know that there's necessarily commerce involved in it either. Right. I mean, so there does. I mean, what damages then can you have? You know, not if I'm putting out records and I'm creating brand confusion.
I can give you an example. Yeah. So I had someone come to me this past year, same name as another band. Right. They've had it for 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. This new band pops up out of New Jersey, and they are playing the same kind of music. They showed up in town in New Orleans, and all the people from the band in New Orleans, all their fans showed up to the show thinking it was them. Right. So it's that confusion. It is interstate commerce because they're coming and playing shows, they're selling their merch, and they're going across state lines. But then it's that consumer confusion that falls into trademark law.
Fair enough. So even though, but you're on tour and you're selling merch. Like if you're literally just in your mom's garage, you know, it seems aggressive to take that stance.
If you're in your mom's garage and you're not playing on social media, that's a little aggressive. If you're just
I think this predates a lot of social media.
If you're like calling yourself a band and just like playing shows for the neighborhood,
right? I mean, you can't just come into town and call yourself like Flow Tribe, right? Like well, that's Flow Tribes. It's totally different, right? Yeah. And now, but let's say tomorrow, like I break out my piano skills for everybody, and they're like Chopin's on tour, and I've written and I specialize in the waltz. Yeah. Like, am I going to get sued by the estate of Frederick Chopin?
Well, it depends on if the estate's still powerful, you know.
It might be. I don't know. Everyone always assumes we're related. I do not think that we are.
Okay.
So I know you were just. I could see like your wheels were turning. We're like shit. Maybe
I was
thinking
it like,
not.
Does he have piano chops?
We have a piano. I do not know how to use the piano. Okay. I know that the keys. We tried getting our kids to do piano lessons. It was not working out. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It only took like a few weeks for the piano teacher to like cry and quit.
But I feel like with Chopin, you're more in the fair use category. Like his stuff is public domain, so you don't have to worry about him as much.
So when do you think that line gets crossed and when it becomes fair use? Like, because the Beatles are not fair use, but man, I mean, come on, guys, it's been around a while. When do you think it crosses that line?
When it becomes public domain, like once it's fair for everybody to use. But when, there's still the copyright protection going on for authors of works, then you're going to have some problems.
I always think that, it's interesting. Bruce Springsteen, there was an article I read recently that they wanted, Ford wanted to use Born in the USA for one of their commercials, and he absolutely refused to do it. He would not allow any commercialization of his music. So I think if you've made enough money, you can do that. Right?
You can do that. You can do that if you even haven't made any money.
Yeah.
Like that's your IP. You can license it however you want.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So I always think, you talk about public domain. My wife had this case. It was a big lawsuit here in New Orleans. She's not an intellectual property lawyer, but was a law clerk at the time. And you grew up in New Orleans. And so as a child, when you catch a pair of beads, especially in the old days when it was just beads, that had like, not just like very little value, but like very little desire. You made little poodles out of them, right?
Right.
And then we start getting little poodle pop-ups around town, the little artist poodles. And then someone sued and said, no, I own the poodle bead dog. And I was the most ridiculous thing. And my wife's not from here. And so, we're talking about our various days and work, and she's telling me about the bead dog. And I was like, what? I was like, nobody can ever say that. We made bead dogs all the time growing up. And if you wanted like a weenie dog, guess what? There maybe were 2 or 3 beads in the middle. If you wanted a poodle, you'd want to shorten that down.
That's true.
Right? It's like you need 2 2s and 1 3. Everybody knows that. Weenie dogs, maybe it's a 4 and 2 2s. Maybe it's like a 5 and 2 2s. You get like little, I was like, if that belongs to anybody, that belongs to every child born and raised in New Orleans, catching little, in those days, the crappy, clear little beads that had a little snap in the back.
Yeah.
I was like, not one person, and they lost.
I've not seen those in forever.
Right? I know. I saw one pair, like a few years ago, and I was like, oh my God, kids, look at this. And everybody looked at me like I was completely insane. And they were like, nobody wants that. Throw that away. And I was like, all right. Well, when I was a kid, that was it. That's like what you got. And the long stuff, that was like special. Now it's like everybody's over the top. So, well, thank you for educating me on intellectual properties.
Thank you for having me.
Specifically as it relates to music. Is it only music, or do you like work with actresses and actors as well?
I work with all types of creative professionals. So I work with filmmakers. I work with photographers. Fashion designers.
The photographers, now that's how they get you.
Yeah.
So we had some photographs taken, and they were like, okay, you're going to give me money for this photograph. And I'm like, cool. And then it's mine? They're like, no, it's still mine. I was like, are you sure? Because it's just my face. It seems like something like, once I've given you the money and you take the picture of my face and you print it out, like that should belong to me now. They're like, no, it belongs to me. And if you ever use it, you have to pay me for it. And I was like, well, what's the picture for if I can't use it? And they're like, well, you could put it on your website. I was like, okay, can I put it anywhere else? They're like, no. I was like, what if I'm in a magazine like for an award and they want a headshot? And he's like, that photograph belongs to me.
Yeah, the magazine would have to pay them for it.
Or I would have to pay them to use my face in the photograph in that 4x6 that you took for me. And
strict licensing.
It's the most ridiculous thing ever. And the truth is, I have no idea. And years have passed, and I don't know where that stuff's being used. And nor do I care. I don't have time for that shit. Listen, you took the picture of my face. Come at me, bro. Right. I'm like, it's on the website. I don't know. Someone asked me for a headshot. I give them the headshot. Great photographer, great work, but the amount of energy that would be required to police every photograph of my face, I don't have time for that. Yeah. I'm just, I got people to sue, I got injured people to help. I don't have time to worry about my own face. And you can tell, like I look like hell today.
Companies that are trolls that will just go into Google and just like backwards search images and send.
Just to get you?
Yeah, just to get you.
Wow. All right. What if I'm not the one posting it? Like, what if there's like a third party posting it?
They have to do it. They have to pay.
I don't know. So, well, let all of our viewers know, if you are in the creative arts and they don't know where to start, or they have a business problem, how can they find you?
They can find me at my website, juliaholtlaw.com, on Instagram, Julia Holt Law. Can email me at julia@juliaholtlaw.com.
There you go. So check it out. If you're musician, artist, photographer, I guess. I'm kidding. Julia Holt, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. It's great meeting you.
Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.